Okay, question 2. Use the table to find constant rate of change in miles per hour. So we're also going to find the constant rate of change again. Since you see the word constant, that means it is a proportional relationship, because every time something is constant, that means it is proportional, and vice versa, meaning that if something's proportional, that means it has to be constant. And also, there's a key word right here, key phrase, miles per hour. Remember in our first lesson, we were talking about that sometimes your question tells you how to set it up. So per is going to be your division. So you're doing your miles divided by your hours. But remember, when you're dividing, y goes first and x goes second. So technically, they're telling you that miles is actually our dependent variable and hours is our independent variable, which makes sense because we cannot control time, but we can control the distance we travel. So the distance traveled on a highway depends on how much time has passed. So actually, that's why y divided by x makes sense. Miles divided by hours makes sense. So remember, since we already know that this is my y value, and we already know that this is my x value, all we have to do is find the change in our dependent divided by the change in our independent. So we're gonna do the changes in y divided by the changes in x. But first we have to figure out what are the changes. So how much are we changing by every time here? So in order to do that, you're gonna be subtracting. So we have 260 minus 130, that's the change, and that gives you 130. If you add 130, that still becomes 390. And if you add 130 again, that's gonna become 520. So you can see that it is constantly changing. Y is constantly changing by 130. And we're gonna divide that by our change in x. So how much are we changing in our x? This one's easier. You're changing by 2 every time. So our change in x is gonna be 2. Then all you have to do is divide that, which will give you 65. And what was the setup? Miles per hour. So our constant rate of change is 65 miles per hour, which makes sense because that means that every hour you're going 65 miles. So every hour you're going 65 miles. So it is constantly changing at that pace. Just to recap from a previous lesson, if you have a denominator of 1, what is this called again? If you have a denominator of 1? That's right, a unit rate. Every time you have a denominator of 1, that means it is a unit rate, which unit rates are important, especially when you have constant proportional relationships.